3, 2, 1.
Here we go!
Might be the only brown guy on earth named Joe Bob.
That's actually her name, Joe Bob.
Good morning and happy Thursday. Welcome in. My name is Joe Bob. I have some thoughts, and we are live from the dingy bunker that is completely cut off from the outside world, except for you fine folks. The Texas situation with the argument is a loose way of putting it, between Joe Biden and Governor of Texas Greg Abbott has intensified. Also, we now have we have proof that the UN is using U.S. taxpayer money to fund illegal immigrants to come here. What do you think about that? Really interesting New York Post article about that. And then, let's see, the Chi-Coms yelled at some British dude in the UK about not filming them, which was kind of interesting. And Joe Biden's biggest blunder of the week, which, you know, there's some stiff competition with that. So let's just get into this. We're gonna do dessert first because why not? If you haven't heard this clip yet, it is what it is. I can't promise you that we won't play it not multiple times. That was too many negatives. What I mean to say is we're going to play this a lot of times. This is Joe Biden on the campaign trail. I think 2 days ago. We weren't live yesterday because of a bunch of stuff that I won't get into. But you've probably already seen this, but you're going to see it a couple more times. Don't mess with the or else was.
We'll teach Donald Trump a valuable lesson. Don't mess with the women in America unless you want to get the benefit.
Anybody have any guesses? Actually, no, I do have some guesses. I think he was saying don't mess with middle America, but then unless you want to get the benefits of messing with middle America, which is what you just said not to do. Let's listen one more time, and by one more time I mean there's no way we don't play this at least 2 more times, but let's try and hear that again.
We'll teach Donald Trump a valuable lesson. Don't mess with the women in America unless you want to get the benefit.
Yeah, don't mess with them unless you want to. Now, the last time we played this through, and I guess 3 times is probably enough, but the last time we played this through, I want you to listen to, I think, the most interesting, funny, off-putting, scary, and ridiculous thing about this video clip. Again, it's only 10 seconds long, but if you listen, and I don't know if you caught on to this the first 2 times we play it, he says what he says, and it's ridiculous and funny and horrifying all at the same time. But the biggest thing that I think is the most interesting here is the crowd's reaction to his mumbling. And the crowd knows that it's an applause line, I guess, and so they go, yeah! They did not hear what he said. They did not understand what he said. They are in a room with speakers overhead, which is not the same as having a microphone right here and into the camera speakers, and we don't even know what he said. So to claim that they had any idea what those words were is inconceivable, and yet they cheered regardless. One last time, listen to my favorite part, which is the crowd going wild.
We'll teach Donald Trump a valuable lesson. Don't mess with the women in America unless you want to get the benefit.
Woo-hoo! Don't. Oh my gosh. What are we doing? Which is a great way to lead us into this, which is not funny, I guess, like not really funny at all. But the Texas government is continuing to fight with the Biden administration, which, in my view of things, is not good. I guess I'll say this. I don't like this. I don't like this at all. I like there's this kind of like swell of the kind of more conservative movement people going, yes, do what you need to do, Greg Abbott. If you're not familiar with this, just really, really briefly. Earlier this week, the Supreme Court said, no, the federal government gets to take down the razor wire that Texas put up on its southern border. And over the last couple days, yesterday, Greg Abbott, well, Tuesday, after that was said that you need to do that, the Texas National Guard put up more barriers and razor wire and blockades. And then on Wednesday, yesterday, Greg Abbott released a big, long statement that we will get to. But just to catch you up there, that's how this is all panning out right now. But all of that is to say is, I think there's a big kind of swell of enthusiasm for Greg Abbott, the Speaker of the House, Johnson, Brian Kemp, the governor of Georgia, Virginia's governor, I'm blanking on that guy's name. I'm seeing his face in my head right now. Anyways, a bunch of governors, a bunch of different states saying that we stand with Texas, and I get it. I get the swell of enthusiasm for what Greg Abbott is doing, especially considering the unprecedented record numbers of illegal immigrants illegally crossing into the country. That being said, while I don't think that what Greg Abbott is doing is wrong by any stretch of the imagination, it doesn't make me feel good. This is, to me, this feels like mommy and daddy fighting. There's no, like this, it's not good, regardless of who's right and who's wrong, and I wholeheartedly believe that this entirety falls at the feet of the Biden administration. They've run a disastrous border policy, and it's clearly showing. Nobody needs to restate that. But at the same time, I don't want the states fighting the federal government. Is it necessary? Yeah, I probably think it is. But it's not good. Like I don't feel as like excited and called to action by this. I more just feel like this hurts. I don't want this to be happening. And yet, I also think the governor of Texas is doing what he has to do. Texas governor released a statement yesterday, and we won't read the entire statement because it's just lengthy and it's very, very good, but we'll just take bits and parts of it, saying that it is within the state's rights to have a constitutional self-defense when dealing with a lawless president. The Biden administration has ignored demands from Texas. This is part of the quote from the statement that Abbott released yesterday. Ignored Texas's demands that he will perform his constitutional duties. And the Texas has declared an invasion which will invoke Texas's constitutional authority to defend and protect itself. That authority is the supreme law of the land and supersedes any federal statutes to the country. The Texas National Guard, Governor Abbott continues, the Texas Department of Public Safety, and any other Texas personnel are acting on that authority as well as state law to secure the Texas border. And this is the quote that I think a lot of people are throwing around, and it's a good one. Abbott says this: James Madison, Alexander Hamilton, and other visionaries who wrote the U.S. Constitution foresaw the states should not be left to the mercy of a lawless president who does nothing to stop external threats like cartels smuggling millions of illegals across the border, not to mention the drugs. So that's what's going on in Texas. Like I said, I don't like that this is happening. I'm not excited about this. I mean, this is one of those things where it's necessary, clearly, because the administration has gone off the rails. What, 18% approval rating, which, by the way, Joe Biden has an 18% approval rating on the border. Those of you who are in the 18%, I know I've asked this question quite a bit. What is your standard for achievement? Not only in this, but just in life in general. Those are the 18% of Americans that are like, yeah, the border he's doing a great job at the border. Where is your bottom? Which sounds like a question Joe Biden might ask. But I didn't mean it that way. I meant, where is the bottom line? Where is the line? Where is your Rubicon that you can't cross over to finally say, no, this is not going well? The 18% of people that approve of the Biden administration's handling on the border. What standards do you have, not only for this, but in everything in your life? I don't know. But there's also some other interesting things weighing in. A Texas congressman, Joaquin Castro, who is one of the twins. He's not one of the twins. Yeah, he's one of the twins, but the twin of, was it Julian Castro? That was Obama's, housing dude who ran for president, and just no reason for him to run for president at all. But that's the type of person that this family apparently produces. Joaquin Castro said this: Governor Abbott is using the Texas National Guard to obstruct and create chaos at the border. You know, I'm going to go ahead and say the chaos was there, and what he's doing is a necessary thing to help stop the chaos. But I guess if you want to look at the world that way, you're fully within your rights to do so. He continues and says, if Abbott is defying yesterday's Supreme Court ruling, POTUS needs to establish sole federal control of the Texas National Guard now. This is why I don't like this. The last thing that we need right now, and that anybody wants, is any sort of physical or even armed conflict between the federal government and one of the states. Which is, he doesn't explicitly call for it, but needs to establish sole federal control of the Texas National Guard. I know he's talking about paperwork, I think, but that does not make me feel comfortable that there are congressmen out and proud saying, no, let's go even further than that. And again, all of this is notwithstanding, it could be fixed. Let's look at it like this. And this is, I don't know if this is a good analogy or not. I'm coming up with it on the spot. A husband and wife are fighting over the Dutch oven is in the top shelf of the cabinetry. The wife can't reach the oven in the top shelf, the Dutch oven in the top shelf, and the husband can reach it. And instead of just getting the Dutch oven off of the top shelf in the cabinetry, they are arguing why there isn't food being cooked in the Dutch oven. And now the wife is trying to climb on top of chairs in order to get the Dutch oven, and the husband is saying, no, I'm the only one that can reach to the top shelves of the cabinetry. Yet, everyone is complaining. Everyone's hungry, the kids are hungry, the in-laws are over, everyone is starving. But nobody can cook any food because the Dutch oven is... What I'm trying to say is there is a problem that is so easily freaking solvable, and it is up to the dad in this situation, the husband in this situation, Joe Biden in this situation. Just solve the effing problem. All of this is totally ancillary if you just reach up to the top shelf and grab. Everyone gets to eat. Everyone is happy, except for those 18% of people that think things are going well. If you would just solve the very simple problem, we wouldn't be in this heated argument about me trying to solve the problem, or the wife trying to solve the problem, or Greg Abbott trying to solve the problem. I realize that was kind of convoluted and all over the place, but this is just, at the end of the day, this is such a bananas situation, strictly in terms of the problem can get solved anytime you want, and yet we choose not to. And I realize you all that continue to watch this show, and thank you for doing so, by the way. I also, tangent. Yesterday was kind of a crazy day. I'm really trying to make sure that we do something every single day on this, because I know the last 2 years has been kind of chaotic with the travel schedule and everything, but we've got a pretty good infrastructure set up here nowadays, and I would hope to be, well, we weren't on yesterday, but all that to say is, those of you who watch the show, I really appreciate you doing so, but I also would imagine that you're probably somewhat tired of constantly hearing about the border. And I get that. But at the same time, it's not often that a governor of a state uses the armed National Guard in open defiance of the President of the United States. So I don't know what to do other than talk about this a lot. Which brings us to this, which is even more of that. more of the border, but also interesting, and a wrinkle that I probably don't think a lot of people have heard of or are talking about as of yet. The U.S. taxpayer, by and large, is funding a lot of the illegal immigration coming to the country. Yes, let me say that again. The U.S. taxpayer, you, know it or not, are funding illegal immigrants crossing the border and effectively invading the country. How are we doing that? Well, the New York Post had a really interesting article about the UN, the United Nations, giving millions, hundreds of millions, and even billions of dollars in order for illegal immigrants to come to the border. In 2021, it was reported that the United Nations was fueling the flame by handing out debit cards and cash vouchers to aspiring illegal border crossers on their way to the north. One outraged group of 21 border security-minded lawmakers pitched a bill that would require the United States, the UN's largest donor, and we'll get to that in just a second, to turn off the taxpayer money spigot. H.R. 6155 never caught fire in no small part because the quote-unquote fact checks that came from outlets like the AFP that claimed the UN was doing no such thing. So in 2021, it was discovered that the UN, by and large, is funding the massive amount of illegal immigration into the country. A couple security-minded lawmakers in Washington said, okay, well, fine, let's stop funding that part of the UN or make them not fund this illegal immigration operation that is literally the cause of the invasion at our southern border. And then a bunch of fact-checkers came in and said that's not happening. Well, new information has come out that proves that the fact-checkers lied, and yes, you are, in fact, paying for illegal immigrants to come into the country. The UN, the New York Post continues, just released the 2024 Interagency Coordination Platform for Refugees and Migrants from Venezuela, R4V for short. That was a mouthful. A planning and budget document for handling $1.6 billion in 17 Latin American countries. It confirms the UN, with the helping hands of 248 named non-governmental organizations, NGOs, is indeed giving debit cards to illegal immigrants, funded in large part by U.S. taxpayers. In other words, this document that was just released in 2024 proved that in 2021, when the fact-checkers said, no, none of that's happening, the UN isn't doing that, well, the documentation right here says, yes, it is happening. The UN is looking to give $1.6 billion to 17 Latin American countries in order to aid people coming to the United States of America. That's the UN and 248 non-governmental organizations. Despite the plan, the naming Venezuelans as recipients of this aid operation in the document's fine print, on page 14, paragraph 43, and they're basically just saying, buried deep within this, despite it being called the refugees and migrants from Venezuela thing, on page 14 and paragraph 43 on that page. That is clunky. That doesn't make any sense. Basically, in the deep buried within the document that houses this, we're helping Venezuelan illegal immigrants, it says that all of that money could go to all nationalities and multiple other nationalities. In other words, it doesn't need to just go to Venezuelans, it can go to anybody. The document, according to the New York Post, clears up any mystery about what the UN and the NGOs are doing on the migrant trails and leaves no room for supposedly debunking the quote-unquote fact checks. Now, just to put this in context, when I say the taxpayers are funding it, I think there would be someone that says, well, no, it's the UN. The UN is funding it. Okay, no. Remember, the UN doesn't have any money if it just exists on its own. It takes contributions from the countries that are involved in it to make it work. And are those contributions proportional to the importance of the countries in the UN? Let me know if you think so. Because there are 193 members of the United Nations. And of the 193 members of the United Nations, we pay for over a fifth of it. 22% on average is what the United States taxpayer pays for the UN. And the other 192 countries make up the rest of it. All that's to say is that the U.S. taxpayer pretty much funds and props up the United Nations, and the United Nations is going out of its way to fuel the flames of the border crisis by just giving out money and cash vouchers to illegal immigrants. The piece wraps up and says, in a nutshell, the UN and its advocacy partners want to spread $372 million in cash and voucher assistance and multi-purpose cash assistance to 624,000 illegal immigrants who are in transit to the United States during 2024, which is a huge number of people, and even more than I think the annual average since the Biden administration took office. That money is most often handed out, other UN documents show, as prepaid rechargeable debit cards, but also hard cash in envelopes. Bank transfers and mobile transfers the U.S. border-bound travelers can use for whatever they want. So the UN is spending $372 million to send to over 600,000 illegal immigrants to invade the United States of America, and we, the taxpayer, are footing the bill for a lot of it because we have an outsized proportion of money that we pay to the UN. Also, Glenn Youngkin. I don't know why his name just flitted back into my head, the governor of Virginia. He also supports Greg Abbott and what he's doing. Holy cow. I would say it is good and about time to turn off the money spigot to the UN. Either that or make countries pay their fair share. Or how about this? How about this compromise? How about the UN doesn't pretend continually that all of the nations of the world are equal and should have an equal say in what we do here at the United Nations? Because that's the biggest and dumbest thing that I've been so irritated about for a long time. If you've been watching the show for a long time, you know that I've been irritated about that for a long time. But the United Nations puts so much effort into making sure that everyone feels equally represented, as if all of the countries that make up the UN are equal. If you look at it solely from a funding standpoint, which I care to look at, but even from a power standpoint, from a GDP standpoint, the United States is not equal to any of these countries that are on all of the different councils and just get an equal representative say in the United Nations. No. We are way bigger, we are way better, we are way more powerful. There's no way that we should be given the same amount of gravitas in any argument or debate, policy-wise, than Namibia or Zimbabwe or any of the other tiny countries that don't pay a fifth of the universe or the UN's entire freaking budget. I know we're all tired of talking about border stuff, but like this is amazing, and not in a good way. You all should understand when I say amazing, I'm not talking like, oh, this is great. No, like this is amazing just from how is this like a thing that is currently happening. But anyways, let's see. Let's go to this because I think this is interesting. Interesting, and also just, you want to talk about the UN. Remember, China has been on the Human Rights Council at the UN before and for a while. This is a video of, changing topics entirely, but this is a video that I think exemplifies the superiority complex that is able to be put in action in communist countries. You may have seen this video already floating around the internet. This is a live streaming piano player in the UK who is doing his thing. He's videotaping, he's live streaming his piano playing in, tube stations. When he's confronted by the Chinese government, or at least people from the Chinese government, and what they demand of him is freaking fascinating and maddening at the same time. Watch this.
Yeah, no, look, can the Chinese chappies have a go?
Oh yeah, of course, we've got the Chinese here.
Do you need to, I see, because we're here film for Chinese TV as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, did you film as all of us in your cameras?
I don't know, are we allowed?
No.
We're not allowed.
Yeah, so
We're not allowed?
You're not allowed because we're for Chinese TV.
Oh, okay.
This is non-disclosable.
It's not disco.
There's no reason. That's our choice. That's our right.
Oh, so it's not a legal thing?
It is a legal thing because
Yes, you can. Yes, and anyone can film because in the UK it's a free country and anyone can film.
But we have image right.
Not in public. In China, but we're not in China.
No, I have my choice. I don't
No,
want
but
my...
we are in Britain, Great Britain. We're not in China.
I say I'm also British. I'm also British, okay? I'm also British. I'm also British, but I don't want to use my image.
You've got a Chinese flag there.
it doesn't matter.
Show me the Chinese flag.
Why you're touching her? Stop touching her! Don't touch her, please. Do not touch her. Please, you are not the same age. Please do not touch her. Don't touch her. Please don't touch her. Please don't.
Holy cow. All right, so if you missed what was going on there, a bunch of the Chi-Coms came over and said, hey, we're from the Chinese government and you're not allowed to film us. As if the laws in their country apply in the country that they are in. And I think, not to go down a rabbit hole and back into the whole immigration thing, this is a big time cultural story. Because one of the problems that a lot of the European countries are seeing, and that we are about to see in this country, is that countries are made up of cultures and people that agree that society should be run in a certain way. And if you have people coming in from all different kinds of cultures and societies with different rules and laws and regulations, the culture that you exist in will change, whether you like it or not. In this particular instance, you have a bunch of Chi-Coms who think that, well, in China, I get to say what you get to do because we are part of the government. And go up to someone in his own country, in the UK, and say, no, my laws apply here, and I'm going to scream at you until you stop doing what I don't want you to do. Which is in-effing sane. And if you don't think that that sort of thing was going to happen in the United States, of people coming into the country with different ways of viewing the world and living their life, and it's going to affect the United States of America as a whole, it's going to happen. This is just a tiny example of the superiority complex manifested into a communist government exported to somewhere else. Because the ideas that people have, culturally speaking, societally speaking, don't change overnight. Which is why you can't have anyone go anywhere whenever they please. The United States is built on a system of values and a society that honestly used to, but doesn't necessarily anymore, demands the best of its citizens. And when the citizens in that society and culture changes, the value system will change, and therefore the culture and society that we live in will inevitably change if we continue to do what we are doing. This is an example in a different country of the type of mentality that gets imported when there are no checks to say, well, if you're going to come here and you're going to live here, you're going to assimilate. What a crazy, crazy thing. I thought that was nuts. But anyways, that'll do it for us today. Appreciate you sticking around, tuning in. If you haven't already, give me a follow on any of your social media platforms. Just type in JOBOB. You'll be able to find me pretty much anywhere. Let's see. Outside of anything coming up? Not really. Yeah, it's a good time. We will see you tomorrow, same time, same place. Yeah, and we'll have some fun then too. God bless America.